Good Friday afternoon to you. Hope your weekend's off to a great start. Thanks for joining us on Sports4CLE. Browns getting ready tomorrow for that final preseason game of 2022 against the Bears over at First Energy Stadium. And it will be our first opportunity to see Jacoby Brissett under center running Kevin Stefanski's offense. Let's welcome in Scott Petrak, Browns beat reporter for the Elyria Chronicle-Telegram. You can also read him on brownzone.com on the internet. Scott, what do you think Kevin Stefanski needs to see from Jacoby Brissett?
Yeah, you know what? I think it's more about the operation, right? Can he get the plays in? Can he get them out on time? Can he get the guys to the line of scrimmage, do all the motions that you need to do? Not that they don't do that in practice, but it's a different environment in a stadium during the game. You know, the play clock matters, right? You have delay of games if you don't get everything going on time. So I think that's more of it than actually how he plays because, 12 or 15 snaps, it's not like he's getting better as a quarterback. I think it's just getting that experience in that system under his belt.
Yeah, I guess the bottom line would be you don't want the first time he's working with this offensive unit to be in a game that matters, and then it's, false start. They're not used to the cadence. Things are just a little different. I know you've answered this question in your mailbag segment as well. Do you think Jacoby Brissett is good enough to avoid having the defense kind of pack the box and try to stop the Browns' running attack?
Well, I think he's going to have to prove that he is because I'm sure the defenses are going to start the season playing like that. And we saw it last year, right, with Baker Mayfield when he was struggling, and even the year before when they had a good year, defenses tried to take away that running game. And that's why you saw, if you remember the Tennessee game in 2020, the Browns came out throwing the ball deep because there was so much focus on stopping the run. You saw it against Cincinnati last year in Cincinnati, and the Browns had some success throwing deep. So I think it's going to be up to Jacoby Brissett to prove that he can make defenses pay. If not, you're just going to see 8, 9-man boxes to take away the running game because that's what it just makes sense for a defense to do. Now, whether Jacoby Brissett's good enough, I mean, he's played in this league a long time. He's completed a bunch of passes. Now, he does tend to manage the game and throw shorter. We've seen that time and again, even in training camp this year. So it does feel like things will be condensed. So it'll be interesting to see how Kevin Stefanski, as a play caller, deals with that. And can he stretch the field to create space for everybody, the running backs, the receivers, and the tight ends?
Yeah, and again, throwing short, if it's early as opposed to hanging on to it for an extra beat, is a little – it's a little different. If he can process it quick enough.
No, that's a great point. And, you could see a bunch of balls going underneath to Amari Cooper and underneath to David Njoku and Harrison Bryant and Kareem Hunt. And that can be part of the offense, right? You don't need to take shots all day long, but at some point you need to stretch it a little bit, and you just need to have that extra passing threat to complement the run. And that can be, like you said, those quick hitters over the middle, that's fine. Just something that takes some of the focus off Chubb and Hunt.
Yeah, correct. It can't be the same rhythm and pace to the offense, I guess, is what we're saying. All right, thoughts about potentially adding Jimmy Garoppolo. There's a lot of talk about that. I don't think they do it at $24 million, especially because Deshaun's contract doesn't toll, so you've got that $46 million hit next year.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. They won't. There's no way they're picking up that kind of contract. And I think it's important to note that the Browns really like Jacoby Brissett. They trust him. And I think they like him more than Jimmy Garoppolo. Now, in my opinion, Garoppolo has a better resume than Jacoby Brissett. He's been to a Super Bowl, been to an NFC Championship game. Jacoby Brissett's never played in the playoffs. Just from a stat perspective, Garoppolo's quarterback rating is higher. He throws for more touchdowns. So I would still, even if you're going to stick with Jacoby Brissett as your starter, I would still go get Garoppolo, whether it's getting in a trade where you can get him to restructure the contract, or when the 49ers eventually cut him, which they have to do before the opener, and then sign him to a free agent deal. Because, after even if you're solid with Jacoby Brissett, Josh Dobbs has never started a game. He's thrown 17 passes in the league. I just think you need more proven experience at quarterback. And Garoppolo gives you the starting option. He gives you a better backup option. And you're trying to stay in contention for these 11 games without Deshaun Watson. And quarterback is so important that if he's out there available, it just, to me, it makes all the sense in the world to go get him.
Yeah, and I would, again, somebody put it this way, and I can't remember who it is. I'm going to steal it. If he's the difference between 2 wins, he's worth it, because 2 wins when Deshaun Watson comes back may be the difference between making the playoffs and having a chance to go deep into it and not.
Yeah, and if you look at the Browns' schedule in that middle stretch, it's hard, right? It's a bunch of big-time quarterbacks. And, just me, I think Jimmy Garoppolo gives you a better chance to win those games. You're right about the 2 games making the difference. The Browns, I know they want to roll over all that cap space that they have because the cap's going to get tighter. Not the cap gets bigger, but their contract situation gets tighter with, big extensions to a bunch of guys. Having said all that, you can still afford to pay Jimmy Garoppolo, and you have the cap space to do it. And I think it's so important, that position, the fact that you need to win this year, given the makeup of your roster. I just think you have to go do it.
Yeah, I'm with you. If you can find a way to make it work financially. What are some position battles you're keeping an eye on in this final preseason game? Guys fighting for roster spots.
Yeah, I think receiver, right? I think there's a bunch of question marks at receiver. Offensive line, I think there's still that interior of the offensive line. There's some spots up for grabs there. Maybe a linebacker spot or 2 after, the first 4, right? Those guys are set. But after that, I think there's question marks. And maybe a safety spot.
What do you think? Is Chase Winovich fighting for a spot? This is a guy they went out and traded for, hasn't been able to play. Is he a lock, or do you think, have the young guys shown enough that they're going to keep the developmental type guys?
I do not think Winovich is a lock to make it. And you talk about fighting, he can't play. He's been out for a couple of weeks with a hamstring injury, so he's been able to do nothing to solidify his status or improve his status. And I do think Isaiah Thomas showed up in that preseason opener, right? 2 sacks, tackle for loss, missed a week with I assume it's broken. He's got a cast on his right hand, but now he's back this week with a covering on it. So I think he makes the team. Alex Wright's going to make the team. He's the number 3 end. And then I think even if they keep 5, which I'm guessing they keep 5, Isaac Rochelle is a bigger body. He's played in this league. I think his resume is better than Winovich's. So I have a hard time thinking Winovich makes this team.
All right. You mentioned Alex Wright, and I know you wrote an article about him. How impressed have you been? I mean, that's a guy from UAB, so not a huge school. He's got a lot of tools.
He does. I mean, you just look at the body, and right, he's 6'5", 267, I think. Looks like he's going to get bigger because he looks skinny to me. I looked at him, we talked to him the other day, and I was like, man, he just not skinny like bad, but like room to grow. But he's been good. I mean, he's gotten a ton of reps with the first team defense because, Clowney takes some days off. There gets rest days. Myles Garrett, missed about a week when he was with an ill family member. So he's gotten a bunch of quality reps and has looked good, right? Showed up against the Eagles in those practices, showed up again in that game. So I think he's been a pleasant surprise. I mean, you draft him in the 3rd round, you expect good things about him. But I do think there's probably an expectation of a bigger learning curve, given the fact he went to UAB, not the biggest school. It's probably a pretty big transition at that position. And I think he's done a really strong job and solidified. I think it's going to be a big contributing role where even on 3rd down, maybe you see him rush from the inside with Clowney and Garrett on the edge.
The other thing is, and I would say this about all of the younger guys, they're quick to say how much the veterans help them out. And he was quick to say all those things about Garrett and Clowney. It doesn't surprise me, but that's a guy that looks like he's been picking their brains a little bit.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And, I mean, those 2 guys to learn from, right? I mean, Myles Garrett might be the best pass rusher in the league, and we know how good Jadeveon Clowney is at setting the edge. And I think, run defense for a rookie defensive end can be difficult. So I think he's really paid attention to Jadeveon Clowney. Now, we need to see him in a regular season game and how Wright does setting the edge. But you've seen him do it in the preseason. So, yeah, he's been an open book. And, the Browns talk a lot about the guys they draft and how they're, character matters, and that's a different discussion. But Alex Wright is one of those guys that is kind of beloved by everybody who knows him, made a great impression when he visited the Browns, and is a type of guy that would be willing to learn from the veterans like you're supposed to.
All right, in your mind, what do you think the toughest roster decisions are for Kevin Stefanski at 4 o'clock? Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry, 4 o'clock Tuesday when they got to get down to 53. Which ones are they going, and there's guys that are going to get cut that are going to get picked up pretty quickly from this 53. There's probably 4 or 5 that deserve to be on the 53 that probably won't be.
Yeah, I mean, I think the most depth is probably at the offensive line, right? You look at the interior and go, okay, this guy gets cut. I can see somebody signing him, and it wouldn't be a surprise if this guy could start somewhere else. So I think from you're giving up on good guys, or you have to get rid of good guys. I think I would go offensive line. Would be the first thing that jumps out at me. I think from a tough decision standpoint, I think we're going to talk about it, is receiver. Just like, who do you keep? Who do you stick with? Can you make a move to bolster that group? Because, the candidates that you have right now and have been here through camp just aren't that impressive.
Scott Petrak, Browns beat reporter from the Elyria Chronicle-Telegram, and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. We will continue to talk a little bit about the wide receiver group. Also, Scott talked to Amari Cooper. We'll get some of the insight on Amari Cooper, Browns' #1 wide receiver. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to OhioLottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Scott Petrak, Browns beat reporter for the Elyria Chronicle-Telegram, as well as on BrownsZone.com. Scott, we talked about it as we were going into break. How concerned are you with the wide receiver position, especially given the fact that it's going to be Jacoby Brissett for the first 11 games?
Yeah, I think if you're the Browns, you have to be really concerned. And we talked about this throughout the offseason, right? Would they make a move? Would they not make a move? And I always felt Andrew Berry wanted to see what Anthony Schwartz and David Bell could do in training camp. And the fact is, I don't think they've shown enough. Both were injured early in the year, or early in training camp, so they missed time. I think that really set back David Bell. He didn't look comfortable to me when he came back, dropped some passes in practice that he normally doesn't do. Now he's rounding into form, but how much can you count on him in the first few weeks of the season? It's hard for any rookie, let alone a rookie that hasn't been there in the entirety of training camp. Anthony Schwartz, we know he dropped balls against Jacksonville. He had one against Philly, even though I think he's had 2 good practices, 2 good weeks of practices since that Jacksonville game. There's still questions. He still doesn't look really natural, receiver, because he's more of a track guy. So having said all that, the question is, who's your number 3 and number 4, right? Demetric Felton all of a sudden is going to get a bunch of snaps in the slot. Do you trust that he can have big production? I don't think we've seen anything to say yes, that's guaranteed. So having said all that, I think there are concerns, and I think that's a spot where, whether it's trading one of your surplus guys. You asked before about difficult decisions. I don't think the Browns are going to cut any of their running backs, but they might try to trade Dearness Johnson because they have a surplus. Maybe you can bring back a receiver. If not, you have to really scour that waiver wire, because I think that's definitely an area that can be upgraded.
And it's likely going to be a younger guy that the Browns like, as opposed to a veteran name. I think that's just the way Andrew Berry has kind of constructed things when he's gone out and gotten guys. Along those lines, this is from Pro Football Focus. Winners and losers from the preseason so far. And they got Anthony Schwartz as a loser. Has dropped 3 of 6 targets thrown his way preseason, averages 1.25 yards per route run. Schwartz has blazing speed, isn't adding enough to the team that will have been hoping to see him take a step forward in his development. Having said that, Scott, I don't think you give up on Anthony Schwartz just yet, but I don't think you can count on him for production. And that's almost the worst thing that you're going to say. His speed and ability is still intriguing enough. You want to see if you can pull it out, so you can't give up on him. But I don't know if you can count on him.
Yeah, I think that's well said. And then the question becomes, do you kind of force it, right? Do you give him a bunch of snaps, even if you can't count on him, to see if he has it in him? And that's dangerous because all these games count, right? And you're trying to win starting September 11th in Carolina. So I think that is a tough spot. I know it's too early to give up on him, and I don't think the Browns are considering that at all. It's just a matter of how much do you play him. And as it's constructed right now, it feels like it's Cooper, Peoples-Jones, and then Demetric Felton, with Schwartz and David Bell kind of working in. And it's just interesting because neither of those guys, like I mentioned, has really shined in training camp, really. And, we saw the Schwartz drops. And it's just, it's not just the drops. It's some of the routes he runs. He got that end around last week, and he misread the blocking. There was a big hole on the outside. Could have been a huge gain, and it turned out not to be a big gain. He just doesn't, like you say, just doesn't look ready to contribute at a big level.
Yeah, and I like what Kevin Stefanski did. They put the ball in his hands on that end around because you want him to feel some success. Dropped the ball. Dobbs came right back to him on the net. They're trying to get him to not think and just go out and play. And so far, I don't think it's worked. All right, let's turn our attention to Amari Cooper. Know you talked to him. He is the Browns' #1 receiver. He's going to need to have a big year. Take us through what you found out with Cooper and what the Browns like about him.
Yeah, I haven't written the story yet. I'm thinking it's going to be kind of part of my season preview, but we talked a lot about route running, and there's like a 27-minute conversation, and the majority of it was about route running, and he's considered, if not the best, one of the best in the league. He said he considers himself the best. Devontae Adams is another guy that he really likes how he runs routes, and it was evident in that joint practices against Philly the second day. There's a red zone drill, and Cooper ran like a slant and go. He got wide open against Darius Slay, who's a 4-time Pro Bowl corner. And then he ran a post and got open and easily open for 2 touchdowns back-to-back from Jacoby Brissett. And that was just kind of examples of what he can do as a route runner, the double moves he excels at. And he just thinks about it a lot. And he took me through like some intricate details of the process and how he reads the defensive backs and how he wants the quarterbacks to read them. He's a really thoughtful guy, and this is something he takes so much pride in, and it's going to show up. Now, the question is, do defenses double him because they don't worry about the rest of the receivers? Can Jacoby Brissett get him the ball enough? But I think Amari Cooper is still at the top of his game and a legitimate #1, and if they can get him the ball, he should have a lot of success because he catches it and he gets open.
The other thing about him is he's kind of like Nick Chubb. He's not – normally the wide receivers are kind of divas, if you will.
Right.
He's just like, no, I'm doing my job.
Yeah, he doesn't seem like – he doesn't have a history of complaining about getting the ball, which I think the Browns love, for their run-heavy offense. Now, like I said, he's soft-spoken, but when you talk to him, he has a lot to say and he's opinionated, but he doesn't carry himself with, I don't think he avoids drama. I don't think he is dying for the spotlight on him. He's just like a real quiet confidence because he knows how good he is.
So the Browns played Michael Dunn at center as a backup. They're looking for a backup because of the injury. Nick Harris, Posick steps in. By all accounts, he did pretty well. Your thoughts on Michael Dunn, and I know you've talked to him and have done a story on him. Just your thoughts on Michael Dunn.
Yeah, I think he moved really well. I think he solidified that backup spot. He's it felt like he was competing with Hjalte Froholt, who from Denmark, who's also, they kind of were rotating is getting those snaps as second-team center. And then Dunn got all what turned out to be first-team snaps because the starters didn't play against the Eagles. And he looked good, and I think he solidified that spot. They also know he can play guard, which you have to be versatile if you're going to be a backup offensive lineman, right? You got to play multiple spots. So I think they feel good. Obviously we saw J.C. Treader retire. So they, the Browns had committed to Ethan Posick as their starter, but now it feels like Dunn has got one of those backup interior line spots, and I think he's earned it. And now he's been with the team 2+ years now, and I think he's kind of got a foothold.
There's a lot of younger offensive linemen that, when given the opportunity, they've been able to plug them in. How much of that is Bill Callahan, the offensive line coach?
Oh, a ton of it. It really is. And I happen to, they practice at different parts of the field every day. So sometimes the offensive linemen are way down, and I wind up not making my way down there. But yesterday, everybody was kind of at the far end, and they were closer to us. So as I made my way to the far end, I stopped and I watched them for, 10, 15 minutes. And just to watch Bill Callahan put these guys through the paces, he's really a taskmaster, attention to detail. And they were doing like agility drills. He was having them go through the bags and having them go one way and then the other way and one way and switch direction. And guys were falling, and he's yelling at them. And, kind of good-naturedly, but it was a fun drill to watch. It just reminds you how dedicated Bill Callahan is and why his line always tends to play well.
And again, that's another area to keep an eye on. Some of those younger guys, other teams know the Browns have some young guys, so that could be another area where they deal to add either a interior defensive lineman or a wide receiver. Scott Petrak, as always, man, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Scott.
Thanks, Steve.
All right, Scott Petrak. Make sure you read him. Elyria Chronicle Telegram on the internet, brownzone.com. Always really good stuff from Scott Petrak covering the Browns. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, Jeff Risdon from brownswire.com. We'll continue talking Browns here on Sports4CLE. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
Maybe cliche, but there's no I in team. The only identity that matters is we. The collective effort to love thy neighbor is needed now more than ever. The responsibility behind pronouns such as I, me, and mine impact we, us, and ours. So understand that you make all the difference in the team. He, him, her, or she can't disturb our peace, since we control our destiny as student athletes. This is the power of pronouns.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns here on Sports4CLE. Let's welcome in Jeff Risdon, brownswire.com. Jeff, Nick Harris was counted on as a starting center, getting his chance. Injured on like the second play of the preseason. Browns had signed Ethan Posick. Now he is going to be their starting center. How big of a concern is starting center? What have you seen from Posick, a guy that has started in his career for the Seahawks?
Yeah, and he started quite a bit. Now, the Seattle Seahawks are not noted for their offensive line, at least not in the past, although this year they're actually pretty good there. But, yeah, he's a question mark. There's no doubt about it. At least they're getting somebody that has some starting experience. I might be in the small minority in that I was a little bit worried about Nick Harris and his potential and, you know, how fast he was developing. But he was certainly capable of proving that he could or couldn't swim. Now those the swimmies are gone, and we're stuck with Ethan. I shouldn't say stuck with Ethan Posick. we're going to have Ethan Posick as a starting center. It could be a lot worse. We've seen a lot worse, believe it or not. But I'm comfortable with Posick. He will execute in the run game just fine. The area where I have concerns with Posick is handling a bull rush up the gut, and also like A-gap blitzes. Those are things that Seattle has been flummoxed with for years. They got away with it because they had a mobile quarterback like Russell Wilson who could handle having interior pressure and float outside. Jacoby Brissett, not that guy. So there's some real concern there. But look, it's I would grade it as a C right now. Like, it's a position that you're not going to find anybody out there that you can upgrade from it. So you rally around Posick. You hope that the all-pro guards that are on either side of him help him stabilize things. He's never played between better players before. Maybe that helps him achieve something that he hasn't done before. But he's a slightly below average starter from what we've seen so far in his career.
Yeah, and you hope Bill Callahan can coach him up a little bit. And if you get a little help from the guards and a little help from your offensive line coach, you're acceptable, I guess, would be what you're looking for out of that. This is from NFL.com. One thing to watch for every team in the preseason week 3. Cleveland needs more answers at wide receiver. How good can Donovan Peoples-Jones be? Will David Bell start cooking after a promising preseason debut? As Anthony Schwartz past his struggles? What's in store for Demetric Felton, Mike Woods, Mike Harley Jr.? Do they have a place on this squad? And, the other thing I would say about the wide receiver group, you're more concerned about it because it's going to be Jacoby Brissett for the first 11 games. And it's nothing against Jacoby Brissett, but it's not an elite quarterback like Deshaun Watson. I think they were counting on Watson to elevate some of these guys.
Yeah, and from what we've seen from Jacoby Brissett, he's not a guy who's going to elevate talent. I feel like all of our our viewers here could have written that segment for NFL.com. There, it's a pretty easy one. It's an obvious sore thumb in Cleveland. I am optimistic on David Bell. I think he's going to be a perfectly fine slot receiver. I think he's going to have some chemistry with Jacoby Brissett that carries over once Deshaun is back in the lineup. I like what David Bell does. Is he topped out athletically a little bit? Yeah, a little bit. But I watched him play at Purdue. I saw him do things that you wouldn't expect a slot receiver at Purdue to do. And I think that translates I think what he did at Purdue translates well to the NFL. So I'm not too worried about that. Donovan Peoples-Jones, Anthony Schwartz, that's where the alarm bells go off. Look, I have defended Anthony Schwartz several times on this show, among others. He's got to get better quickly, and it just hasn't happened yet, and it's frustrating to see because he does have the physical potential to do it. And then you look around the league and you see other teams bringing in, the raw speedster types, and then they thrive right away. You saw Devin Allen with the Eagles do it. Like, why can't that happen for Schwartz? And it hasn't just clicked yet, and that is a worry. It's certainly something that we would like to see better play. And, obviously you lean on the run game. That's got to be the plan. You throw to your running backs, which is something that Brissett does well. You have David Njoku. You paid him all that money. Let's utilize him, get some return on investment there with your prime tight end. But, yeah, wide receiver is honestly, that and center are probably the only questions I have about the offense. I feel really, really good about the rest of that offense, and not just like the starters, but I think the depth is solid. But look at that wide receiver spot, and you're just you're hopeful that things go better quickly because we haven't seen it yet.
It looks like Felton has become the default slot receiver because Bell was injured, so that battle's going on. But when Alex Van Pelt was talking, he mentioned Felton. They like what they've seen of him in the slot. Can Felton or Harley fill a role? And you're not. The thing that, and we talked about this last segment with Scott Petrak, they're not going to give up on Schwartz because the talent and the skill set is too intriguing. But you can't count on him, so you kind of have pushed him back to the back of the pack a little bit.
Yeah, and you almost wish that you could get like a little bit of a medical red shirt on. Not wishing injury on him, but he kind of needs to. Like, I don't think the mental game is there with him yet, and maybe that will click with increased coaching. Maybe as he gets more reps in practices and as he gets more comfortable catching passes from Jacoby Brissett, we'll see. Harley's interesting to me. I didn't think a lot of him coming into camp, and now I'm intrigued by what he's got. Felton has always straddled that line between, is he a running back, is he a wide receiver, is he a return specialist, is he some weird amalgamation of all three? They clearly don't need him at running back. They might as well try him in the slot and as like a jet sweep gadget play type wide receiver. He does have that potential. He did that at UCLA, so I feel decent about his chances. But again, that's a role where you're getting, I don't know, 30 to 35 passes a season, maybe 15 to 20 runs a season. It's not a meaty role, but I'm comfortable with him being in it. But that's, again, it's definitely a concern. And I can't reiterate how much I like Amari Cooper and how promising I think that David Bell is. And I think that we're jumping off the 480 bridge a little bit too early with the wide receivers, but it's certainly, there's valid concern, but it's not time to panic just yet.
All right, so a lot has been made about the Browns wide receiver and lack of depth. A young guy with the New York Jets, Denzel Mims, has requested a trade. And you see, he could end up being a cut as well, but through his agent, had a private meeting, training camp. It's just time, his agent said. Mims has tried in good faith, but it's clear he does not have a future with the Jets. And the Jets will probably do him right and try to trade him or just cut him and then he can sign with anybody. But, you know, they went out and drafted Garrett Wilson. You know, they had Corey Davis. They got Elijah Moore in the second round. Mims was a pretty high pick out of Baylor, and just really they kept bringing guys in on top of him.
Yeah, and all those guys quickly proved they were better than him too. And I think that's the rub that you're not going to get from Mims' agent. He hasn't been good and has played his way down the depth chart. They have given him opportunities to try to prove himself, and he hasn't done it. Look, the Jets are trying to build a culture where they're building around winners, and you know, I appreciate what Robert Saleh, their head coach, is trying to do. And if Denzel Mims doesn't fit their culture or what he wants their offense to look like, I get why you do that. Like they weren't the regime that drafted him, so it looks poor for Mims. It also looks poor for the Jets organization, but they are two different ships passing in the night there, and the Browns would be wise to look his way, but they got to be real careful because this is a guy, like, he was a divisive draft pick too. There were a lot of people that weren't so high on him. There were whispers out of Baylor that maybe he's not the hardest worker. Had a little bit of the looks like Tarzan plays like Jane mantra coming out. I know one prominent draft analyst labeled him that way. If the Browns do make a move there, and I don't know if they will or not, be careful on raising your expectations too high. Just because he was a second-round pick a couple of years ago doesn't mean that he's going to work. We see second, third-round picks wash out all the time. We have seen that on the Browns defensive line, unfortunately. So I would temper expectations if they do get Denzel Mims. But look, he's a phenomenal big-bodied ball catcher, and the Browns can use that. But I wouldn't give up much, and I also wouldn't expect him to do much, at least not early on.
Yeah, I think that's more of the kind of guy would be the MO of Andrew Berry to trade for, though, as a young guy. Who you think
Definitely.
if you bring into your situation, you can unlock the potential. That's kind of what he's done with trades in his first couple years in charge. Fair to say that?
Oh, absolutely. And you look for that. You know, young talent, guys drafted that highly are always going to get a second chance and probably a third chance in most cases. If it doesn't work in that first one, hey, maybe he doesn't fit with the coaching. I think we've established that. Maybe a different coach. Maybe he'll work with Kevin Stefanski. Maybe he'll fit nicely with Alex Van Pelt. You know, maybe having Amari Cooper as a mentor will help him. You never know. It's definitely worth a try. And like you said, this is the MO of players that Andrew Berry is going to try to bring in. You know, in his insatiable quest for talent that he always talks about.
Jeff Risdon from BrownsWire.com and I can step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, Jeff alluded to it. One of the ways you work around a wide receiving core that's not very deep, throw to the backs. We'll have a couple of looks at what the Browns might be able to do offensively with two backs. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to OhioLottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Jeff Risdon of BrownsWire.com. So, Jeff, one way to compensate for the lack of depth at wide receiver, limit the number of wide receivers you need to use. And the Browns have a plethora of running backs, two-back set, and it would work really well with Jacoby Brissett. So they have the fullback wheel route, and we've seen Kareem Hunt play fullback that first year when he came in the middle of the year, and you see there's nobody near the fullback. This is from the Kyle Shanahan system, really similar to what the Browns use. You want to load the box, two backs, and you use them in the passing game, and the Browns have guys that can catch the football as running backs. Do you think we see more of this? Haven't seen a lot of it in Kevin Stefanski's offense last year, saw some of it in the first year. You think we see more of that?
Oh, isn't that beautiful? The fullback wheel route, and with Kareem Hunt and his speed and his receiving ability as the fullback, yeah, give me that. I want that. Give me more of that. I've long advocated that you put Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt in the backfield together and make the defense worry about it, because I think, that if you're a linebacker, where are you, reading your keys when you've got those two dynamic running backs in the game as runners? Like that's going to pull your safeties up. That's going to make your linebackers fully attentive. You slide David Njoku on a post route right behind that. There's a lot of different things you can do out of it. But I love the idea of doing the play action wheel route to the fullback with Kareem Hunt. That's a brilliant play. You saw it in the video there. The running back has to honor that run. And if you see the fullback, selling it really well, if Hunt can sell the pass protection, like, oh, I'm gonna chip on this tight end here, or the defensive end, Kareem Hunt's good at that stuff. He's a great pass protecting guy. Like, they're gonna buy that. That's the kind of things that you can do to manufacture good looks and an occasional big play. Now, you don't want to get too reliant on it, because then the defenses will sit on it. But that's when you hit him with Nick Chubb up the gut, running behind those guards and that offensive line. There are ways you can manage and mitigate not having more than one good wide receiver on the team. The teams do it all the time. I'll go back to the Houston Texans when they only had Andre Johnson, and they still found ways to get him the ball and move the ball creatively around that fullback. That was a Gary Kubiak as their coach and offensive guru. Same system as Shanahan. You see a lot of that. You see the fake screen pass one way to Chubb, and you throw it back the other way to Kareem Hunt on the other side with only one blocker in front of him. Your wide receivers can block. We have seen that the Browns wide receivers, they are good blockers. Donovan Peoples-Jones is a great blocker. They can utilize those types of skills and do things. Look, you don't have Jarvis Landry and OBJ anymore. You got to tailor your offense to what you've got. That's certainly a great way of doing it.
Yeah, and again, Kareem Hunt lined up as that fullback when he was the first year with the Browns, when he sat out the first several games. He can block.
Absolutely.
He can fill that role really well. All right, here's another one, and this one, again, out of the two-back set, and it kind of, what they do is they get the wide receiver to run all the way across the formation, and they complete it. That's with a guy like Amari Cooper, even Donovan Peoples-Jones is a big body. It's a variation where you send Hunt down a seam. Everybody's looking at him because you've done it before, and you run the wide receiver across. There are a number of things that you can do schematically with two backs. And again, we've talked about it. I think Kevin Stefanski will probably use the two backs. Keep in mind, you've got Dearness Johnson as well as Jerome Ford. So you've got four guys. You can keep them fresh. And if you're going to keep all four of them, use them.
Yeah, if they're on your roster, make good use of them. If they're better than if your running back number 4 is better than your wide receiver number 4, maybe lean on the running backs a little bit more. I just looking at that play, like the Texans defense honestly played that pretty well. Like their safety was in position to make a play there. It's just there's so much going on that he can't make that play. Now that's a difficult throw. And that's a throw that I'm not sure that Jacoby Brissett can do, that particular one. But you can do variations out of that. You can throw that ball quicker and catch him before he's going across. If the safety creeps up on the play action, then you've got it right behind him. That's one of those where the wide receiver has to read it. I trust Amari Cooper to read where he needs to go on that route. And hopefully Jacoby Brissett and he are on the same page. But you can do a lot of things out of that. Yeah, it's a great concept. I really do hope that we see a lot more of the two-back sets, and you can split them. Have the split shotgun. You don't necessarily have to have it in the standard I formation or one guy offset. There's a lot of different ways that you can roll with it, and I hope we see a lot of it this year because the Browns have the personnel to pull it off and do things that defenses don't normally see. That is not something that defenses can practice against. You look around like, do the Bengals can they do that? Can the Steelers replicate that in practice? Heck no. Use that. That's an asset.
Yeah, and it's similar to the thought, one of the reasons the Ravens are so effective is nobody can replicate what they do offensively with Lamar Jackson. Well, nobody can replicate the backs that the Browns have. So I'm with you. The other thing you mentioned is you have the ability to split out your tight ends. Your tight ends are athletic enough that if you can get formations where you have man coverage and you get them on a man cut. If it's a linebacker, they're going to be too slow for both Harrison Bryant and for David Njoku. If they're a safety, they're too small for both of them. So, that's when we say get creative, that's what we need to see with Jacoby Brissett as the quarterback.
Oh, 100%. Play to your strengths. Play to what your good players do well. That's good coaching. I still believe Kevin Stefanski is a pretty darn good football coach. Didn't have his best year last year, but he's poised for a bounce back year, and that is absolutely one way that you can do that. And you'll see why he was the coach of the year as a rookie head coach back in 2020.
Do you think
that's the hope?
We mentioned how deep the Browns are. 4 of those running backs really talented, and heck, I think John Kelly, the 5th one, is probably an NFL caliber number 2 or 3. Do you think they trade any of their running backs? Do you think they keep those first 4?
I think, and I don't know this, I'm just speculating. I think they're looking to make a move there with a guy like John Kelly. Look, he is helped by the run scheme. All the running backs are helped by the Browns' run scheme and the offensive line. Like that does make them probably look a little bit better in our fans' eyes than they might look to another general manager around the league. But there's certainly a place for John Kelly on an NFL roster, and unfortunately, it's not in Cleveland. Like there just isn't room for him, especially when you have a guy like Johnny Stanton who can sort of fill in all over the place. Like they're gonna. I would hate to see them cut him and have him be immediately claimed and wind up being RB2 or RB3 somewhere else. But it's tough to say what other teams feel about their running backs right now. I'll just look at the Detroit Lions, the other team that I cover. They're going to cut a guy or two who are probably going to wind up somewhere else too. They're very happy with their top 3. The market just might not be there at this point. Maybe after the cut downs, but then you're not getting any trade value out of it. So look, it would be nice if they can explore it and hopefully get something out of it. But I wouldn't count too highly on getting anything more than like a 2024 7th round pick for John Kelly. And he should be worth more than that, but that's just the market economics the way they are right now.
Yeah, no, I agree. If you get a 6th or a 7th round pick, it's a 6th or a 7th round pick you wouldn't have, and John Kelly's going to really have a rough time making that roster. All right, this happened yesterday. Joint practices between the Bengals and the LA Rams, and in the middle there with the helmet swinging is Aaron Donald, number 99 for the Rams, and he's got a helmet in each hand swinging them. Now, league sources have said that it's up to the independent, because it's happened in practice, it's up for the teams to discipline. And Jacina Anderson says, I don't believe everyone's okay. The NFL should be vigilant, vocal about conduct compromising player safety, regardless if it's game day or not. Read nothing in Article 42 of the CBA preventing him from making a statement on the use of helmets during an altercation. It's certainly not a good look, given the outcry that came with Myles Garrett, in a nationally televised game. Let's see how the NFL has to handle. Again, they've been so inconsistent with things. I mean, why isn't Aaron Donald suspended? At the very least, okay, if you want to say it's not a game, it violates personal code of conduct, I guarantee it, because he's trying to harm somebody.
With one helmet in each hand, that's taking it to a new level. And look, Aaron Donald is probably I'll say he is the best defensive player in the game. Sorry to Myles. I think Aaron's got you there. Myles, strong number 2 there. But the outcry that came when we all saw what happened with Myles Garrett and Mason Rudolph, I did this yesterday. Several people tweeted out receipts from folks who were being highly hypocritical and calling for Myles Garrett to never play again. And, this is practice, no big deal with Aaron Donald. And I will continue to find, if I see those on Twitter, you better believe I'm retweeting them. They have to do something here. Like, I understand it's a practice, but it is a joint practice. It's a competitive environment. I would hope that the Rams do something and try to send a message. Fine him if the NFL won't do it. Because the practices are monitored by the teams, the Rams have some responsibility for the conduct of their players in these situations. I would like to see them do it. I don't have any feel for if they will or not, but man, how can you not do anything? I don't. You watch that, and how is that different from what Myles did? I don't get it. They got to do something.
No, he's trying to hit somebody. I mean, it's clear. He's swinging it in a pile of people, and he's swinging 2 hands full of it. So, yeah, again, that's extremely hypocritical. I'm with you. Jefferson.
Do something, Goodell, please.
Yeah, again, he's trying to hurt somebody. That was violent intentions there. So that should be
Absolutely.
Some sort of suspension. Jefferson.
Give it to me. Yeah, give me 4 games. I want 4 games.
Yeah.
4.
Yeah. 6, it's violence. So, it's violent.
Why not?
All right, Jeff Risdon, BrownsWire.com, as always, man. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Jeff.
Thanks for having me, guys.
All right, Jeff Risdon, check him out, BrownsWire.com. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, film breakdown with Lance Reisland of the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com, looking at David Njoku. Sports4CLE, we'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to OhioLottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family
and educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams. I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
Sports4CLE continues. We continue talking Browns with Jacoby Brissett, the guy that will be the Browns starting quarterback for those first 11 games. Likes to use his tight end quite a bit. When he was a starter in Indianapolis, Jack Doyle was his leading receiver. Means the Browns will likely feature that tight end position. With that in mind, let's welcome in Lance Reisland. Take a look at how the Browns might be able to use David Njoku. Lance, I've said for a couple of years, Njoku should be a matchup problem. What do you see from his skill set as a coach?
Well, the first thing you said, I agree with. I think Jacoby Brissett loves those tight ends. The reason why he's very good under 15 yards is he's very accurate, very consistent. What David Njoku gives you, first of all, seeing him in person over the course of a couple of weeks at camp, he's a big kid. He's a big man. He's very large, long. So he gives you those matchups inside when he's in line as a tight end. He's a matchup nightmare for those linebackers and those smaller safeties. And then another thing he can do is he can split out. He can play multiple positions at receiver. He's a red zone. I think he should be just a red zone nightmare for a defense in terms of matching up against those smaller corners. Now he's a primary guy, and with Brissett in there, I see him having a pretty solid year.
All right, so with that in mind, let's take a look at some video of David Njoku. So the Browns, 1 back, 3 tight ends, 13 personnel. What do you see here that you think the Browns want to take advantage of?
Well, the thing I saw here is that the Browns are in, I said they're 13 personnel, so they got Forstall, and they got Bryant, and they got Njoku at 3 strong here. So they come out with a 13 personnel, which is going to get big personnel in from the defense. And the Browns tight ends, especially Njoku, they all move very well, and they all can catch the ball very well. So Njoku's at 3 strong here running a corner route, a smash route we call it. And he's going to be matched up against a safety, and that's a really tough cover for a safety with a guy with Njoku's speed and size and catch radius.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You know, when we say matchup problem, if you put a linebacker on him, he's usually going to be quicker and faster. If you put a safety on him, he's bigger and stronger. And along those lines, this time covered by a pretty big, pretty physical safety in Grant Delpit. And take a look at it. Throws it to where Njoku, and that's a really, really nice adjustment by a big guy in Njoku to make that catch.
Yeah, absolutely. What I like is, first of all, he throughout practice, he works as a lineman with the lineman, and he works as a receiver with the receiver. So that tight end position with the Browns, all tight ends, but especially with the Browns, is really unique. What I love about this route is he takes a receiver release, he gets a little shake off the line. He doesn't press himself too much to the sideline, which makes it a tougher throw for the quarterback. So he presses upfield, and then he makes it a great adjustment. He's got great body control, great body awareness, and like you said, this is a really tough catch for a large guy. And David Njoku's a very big man.
And what you talk about moving up the field as opposed to further out, you give yourself more room along the sidelines. That's kind of that's a very savvy move by a tight end, because when he cuts it up, he's kind of lengthening the ability in the window for the quarterback to drop it in on the sidelines, correct?
Yeah, you know, and what happens is those DBs try to press you to the sideline. So when he makes that catch, that body control catch, you can't do it. He'll be out of bounds. So what they try to do is they try to get back on top of the safety or back on top of the corner and give themselves room to catch on the sideline. So it makes it not only an easier catch for him, but an easier throw for the quarterback. The quarterback can throw it to a spot that only he can get it.
All right, so we've talked a lot about it, about a mismatch problem because of his size and his speed. So we see him here in this video working on an over-the-shoulder catch, just kind of working. And what is the idea behind David Njoku working this particular drill?
Well, watching him throughout camp, the thing I really like is his attention to detail. So this is after practice. I'm actually getting ready to leave practice, and his attention to detail, working this red zone kind of concept over the shoulder where he can only get it using his hands. What I was really impressed with is just that he's always working at his craft. He's always working to get better, whether he's in the line blocking with the linemen or, with the tight ends or working with receivers. But this drill here, he's just simply working on his hands in the red zone, making that over-the-shoulder catch where only he can get it.
And again, you put it up. He's a big, tall guy, physical guy. That's going to be a spot where if the quarterback can put the ball, again, only he is going to be able to catch it.
Yeah, especially when they split him out and he's on those corners. I think that might be his biggest mismatch. I'm sorry, when he's in the red zone. Those corners that are going to be in man coverage in the red zone are really going to struggle with him when he's out at one, for sure.
All right, the last little bit of video we'll do. This it's a short little speed route, and how do you use this effectively if you're the Browns? What are they trying to do here?
Well, again, it's him in the slot. He's out at receiver, so he's going to be matched up against the backer, maybe a safety. The thing that I'm impressed with, again, is that he's working the speed out, just like the receivers do. He's turning off his inside foot. He's lowering his shoulders. He's lowering his body as a whole, which is not easy to do for a big guy. He catches the ball with his hands. He turns upfield. So for me, it's just the attention to detail that not only Njoku has, but the Browns have as a whole. They really focus on doing all the little things right. So he's just working his craft here. And for me, it's just impressive, the versatility that he has.
In addition to being a threat in the receiving game, the Browns have talked continuously about how he's improved as a blocker, and we've kind of touched around that. That's something that you better do because the Browns are going to run the football, and they're going to need the tight ends to block. What did you see him working on his craft as a blocker as well?
Well, the Browns are a zone team. They're very multiple in the run game, so they run a lot to that CD gap or between the tackle and tight end, and then to the sideline, the tight end to the sideline, which would be D gap, or that 6 and 8 hole. So the focus of their run game in both their outside zone and their gap schemes is pretty much at the tight end of the tight end area. So those guys have to be good at the point of attack when the Browns run the ball. And the thing that I really liked about him is that when he's with the linemen, he's in essence a lineman. They're working the trade combo blocks and with the tackles, and they're working the reach blocks on the zone with the other tight ends or the tackle. So, when he's down with the lineman, it's like watching a lineman practice. And when he's up with the receivers, it's like watching a receiver practice. So again, that versatility is key for the Browns tight ends.
The other thing you mentioned is splitting him out. So a lot has been made, and myself included. You'd like to see another veteran wide receiver kind of added to that mix because you got Cooper, you have Donovan Peoples-Jones, and there's a lot of young guys. And again, they may be just fine. Is this one of the ways that you kind of alleviate that by splitting out maybe a Harrison Bryant, splitting out a David Njoku, because they are guys that in essence can be wide receivers if you need them to be?
Yeah, exactly right. You could put those guys in the slot and go 4 receivers with Cooper and Donovan Peoples-Jones, and you have a really good 4 receiver set. I think some of those receivers have gotten a lot better. They got a lot better at camp from what I watched. But yeah, you can alleviate some of the issues with depth, and they've had some injuries and they're new. But yeah, especially when you talk red zone, and so much of football is situational football, and you have to score touchdowns in the red zone. And you watch every NFL game, and 7 points or 3 points. So coming away with touchdowns is crucial. And I think that's one of his strengths, is the ability to match him up against a small NFL corner or smaller NFL corner. None of those guys are small, but he can create that matchup that could give the Browns a lot of success.
And a lot of people nationally have made a point. Browns gave him a big contract. He didn't have the production. I think losing sight of when he was a rookie, he was young and really raw. So he's really kind of hitting what you would expect to be the part of his career where he's going to start really taking off. I think he's primed for a big year. I don't want to put words into your mouth. When you look at David Njoku, what do you think this year? As you see some of the skill sets and some of the ways you think the Browns may use him in this offense.
Well, he's tight end number 1 now. So, where he wasn't tight end number 1 for, his previous part of his career, he's tight end number 1 now. So, in terms of those under routes, all the tight end routes he's going to get, he'll be the primary guy. And they use Bryant a lot in the backfield and for multiple tight end sets. But in terms of the tight end routes, he's getting the primary dose of those concepts from the Browns offensive staff. Matched with that with the ability to be outside in the slot, in the red zone. I see high productivity from him because not only when Watson gets back does he stretch the field vertically, but again, Brissett's strength is 15 yards and under, and he makes good decisions. He's consistent. He's accurate. And a lot of those tight end routes are 15 yards and under.
Yeah, and he gets the ball out quick and on target. And if you can do that with a guy that can run like David Njoku, that could equate to a lot of run after the catch with Jacoby Brissett.
Absolutely.
Lance Reisland, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Coach.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, Lance Reisland breaking it down on David Njoku. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We will see you back here Monday at 4 o'clock breaking down the Browns and Bears preseason game. Have a great weekend. See you Monday at 4 on Sports for CLE.